Hello, my little deep frau milches, and welcome to my world. It's raining outside, pouring rain in the mountains of South Carolina, and I am here talking about the Cleveland Browns. You know, the preseason's about to begin. I got to say something, and my silence has been overwhelming, right? So has yours. Let me tell you, first of all, what pisses me off more than anything are fanboys who just Kaiser. You got to start Kaiser. And then when the first preseason game, Hugh names Osweiler as the starting quarterback, and they're saying Osweiler, got to start Osweiler. And it's like, you know, the only reason I'm doing this podcast today is because I'm totally fed up with the fan base. I mean, it's like they're like a rudderless ship. It's like, I'm just going to talk y'all off the ledge here, okay? I'm going to tell you what the season's going to be in a nutshell so that you don't all get excited. You don't pop a Woody. You're not going to think that Brock Osweiler is the second coming of Jesus Christ. You're not going to compare anybody to Johnny Manziel, or you're not going to do any of that stuff. By the time this brief podcast is over, it will put in perspective what you need to know about this year's Cleveland Browns. First things first, the quarterback controversy. You know, you have to have a quarterback to have a controversy. You know, the thing, it's just like the Browns and Steelers rivalry. You have to have competitive teams to have a rivalry. A rivalry is like in a boxing trilogy, it's Ali Frazier, where both men have a chance to win. That's a rivalry, you know, spanning 3 fights. You know how that goes. And the Browns and the Steelers. The Browns are a fucking tackling dummy. There is, you know, and every rookie who comes in here, I'm going to beat up Ben Roethlisberger, and then we lose 47-0. You know how it goes. I got upset at the word quarterback controversy because we don't have one, and we haven't had one since Bernie Kosar. And look, I'm not going to sit here and complain about it anymore because it's the same old rant over and over again. But there is no controversy. Let me put this to rest right now. Cody Kessler has a weak arm. There has never been a quarterback in the history of the NFL who decided to lift more weights or do whatever and suddenly got a stronger arm. It's like a puncher in boxing. If you're a big puncher, you're a big puncher. I've seen big punchers like Buster Drayton, the middleweight, who threw his punches way wide overhand would knock people senseless. I watched Joe Louis throw 6-inch right hands and knock people senseless. I watched George Foreman at 45 years of age knock out Michael Moore with a 6-inch right hand. If you can punch, you can punch. But if you can't punch, you're a fucking mosquito. And all you can do is just keep biting and aggravating somebody. And the bottom line is you are what you are. And Cody Kessler does not have a strong arm. He's not capable of making all the throws. Okay. Here's the other thing about Cody Kessler that pisses me off is that Cody Kessler is Cody Kessler, but Hugh Jackson last year told me to trust me on this one. Well, I trusted you, you stupid ass. And now look at Kessler. I mean, he can't even play in any meaningful way in a preseason. I mean, in practices, I don't know why I've frozen up on this end. We might have a bottleneck on the internet and it's not coming back. There it is. Jeez. It's raining real hard here and has been for, you know, the better part of a week. I don't understand what it is. I mean, we knew when we scouted Cody Kessler for the podcast that he was very accurate in college. He learned offenses pretty quickly. He was not an uber athlete. He was not particularly fast, and he had a weak arm. And it was one of the reasons why it was a real head scratcher, why the Browns even reached for Cody Kessler after the likes of Charlie Fry and all the other weak-armed quarterbacks that we've had in Cleveland. But Hugh told me, hey, you know, trust me on this one. And now look at what's happened. Cody Kessler can't even, I mean, it's like a guy who can't punch out of a paper bag. He can't throw out of a paper bag. And there's no point in discussing Cody Kessler. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of my time and your time. All right. So, and Hugh has gone silent about trust me on this one. All right. And by the way, don't trust Hugh Jackson. He's a big talking shuck and jive artist. The guy is bullshit with arms and legs. I swear to God, I wouldn't believe a fucking thing he says. In fact, I'd actually believe Jimmy Haslam before I believe snake oil salesman Hugh. That's that out of the way as well. So now we're down to 2 quarterbacks, if you want to call them that. Brock Osweiler, who made his bones by playing a few good games for the Denver Broncos. And then we later found out that the Denver Broncos had such a good defense that basically any quarterback, including Tim Tebow, could keep them in games. And then he moved on to have that stellar year last year in Houston, which the fanboys say, well, they had a winning record. They had a fucking team, too. It seems to be they had wide receivers who could get off the line of scrimmage. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And the competition is between he and Deshaun Kaiser, who, quite honestly, has no accuracy and never will have accuracy. It's another one of these things. You know, Bernie Kosar came into the league, and I remember watching him throw footballs through tires. You know, I mean, accurate like Corey Kluber is accurate. Okay, like throwing fucking darts, right? Not Kaiser, you know, and I'm tired of the big arm quarterback who's not accurate because we already had Anderson, and we know prone to picks, Anderson, Kaiser, both tall, Anderson, Kaiser. I mean, does all this resonate with anybody out there? And 50% completion rate. Doesn't work in the NFL. If you're not accurate, you're going to get picked, and you're going to get nailed for pick sixes because you believe your arm, Jamarcus Russell, is more important than your mechanics. I've never seen a quarterback come into the NFL whose mechanics were lousy who became suddenly great. I've seen guys get better at it, but these guys with big arms, I got to be honest with you, from the time they play peewee football, they rely on their arms and the sheer speed of their wide receivers all the way up to college. The college receivers have such an advantage over the pro receivers. It's not funny. There's so much more window to throw to, and we go through this every year. So a big arm quarterback is far less important. Nobody talks about how much of a cannon Tom Brady has. Now, he has a fine arm. Don't get me wrong. But nobody sits there and really says, God, what a gun. He's just dead balls accurate, man. I mean, everything is on the numbers, and he hits people in stride, and they get extra yards because he puts the ball where it needs to be put. So we have Osweiler and we have Kaiser. Who's the better choice? Well, my God, Corky from Life Goes On could figure that out. Kaiser's never played in a professional football game. So where is the competition in this quarterback competition? What I see is that Kaiser is at AAA trying to find his way to the big leagues, and that Osweiler is a guy who's in the big leagues but is maybe working his way back to AAA if he has a bad couple of games. Nobody wanted Brock Osweiler in the entire NFL. There's a reason for this. There's a reason why people weren't running to draft Cody Kessler. There's a reason for all this, folks. And it's accumulated wisdom. It's not the wishes of fanboys who wish that this drought of sub-mediocrity would just end. It isn't that. It's accumulated knowledge base that says that these players aren't very good. So there's no quarterback controversy in Cleveland. There's no quarterback competition in Cleveland. It's Osweiler, or Osweiler until he gets hurt. And he will. And the reason he will is what I'm going to discuss next. From the minute the Browns take the field, I guarantee you, teams are going to put 7 men in the box. If you remember, Cleveland starts out the season sometimes running the ball well, and you go, ooh, we got a ground game. The crow is flying. And then all of a sudden, all the holes are gone. Then you notice they're putting 7 men in the box. And the reason they're doing it is because the Cleveland Browns have refused to draft wide receivers. They just won't fucking do it. And when they do, the people they do draft are like Corey Coleman, who are sub-mediocre. Corey Coleman's been invisible in camp this year. He set the camp on fire last year. This year, he's been really barely noticeable. He's not that good, folks. He's a number 2 or number 3. He's not a number 1. It's like KJ when the Browns came back in 99. He was our go-to number 1 guy, but he was really a number 2, number 3 guy for the rest of his career when he was out of Cleveland. What do you want me to tell you about this? You put 7 men in the box, 2 things happen. You can blitz off it or you can just stuff the run. There are not enough offensive linemen to go up against 7 men in the box. Now, you say, well, geez, you make them pay downfield. It's like, yes, that's the common wisdom, folks, that if they commit 7 men to the box, that there's only 4 men in coverage. But that implies that the receivers can beat single coverage. It also implies they can get off the line of scrimmage. What makes you think that a guy like Njoku, who's just a rookie, who's having enough trouble holding on to balls in camp, who's third, by the way, number 3 on the depth chart, behind Seth DeValve and Sebastian Telfair, the guy from New York who got caught with weapons. No, Telfair is our other tight end, number 86. I don't even know his first name, but he's highest on the depth chart, which is really fucking scary. But what makes you think these people can get off the line of scrimmage? And the only reason Telfair, by the way, is number 1 in the depth chart is because of the running game. He's the best run blocker we've got at the tight end position. What about the other wide receivers? Britt, I imagine he can get off the line of scrimmage. Possession receiver, not going to beat anybody deep downfield. That's not what he does. The only guy we had who was a real field lengthener, and he's long gone. Pryor's long gone. Gordon is long gone. So what do we have? So if you're a defense and you look at the Browns, you say, you know something? They don't even have Taylor Gabriel anymore. They got rid of him, and he just made a difference for the Falcons getting down the field. They don't have anybody who can stretch the field. So how are we going to pay for putting 7 men in the box? We're not. We'll just cover them mano a mano on the outside, and they'll be struggling to get off the line of scrimmage. Like the same shit that's been happening the last 6, 7, 8 years, okay? It's history repeating itself. And until you make the big play, the strike downfield, you're never going to convince them to get out of that defensive set. And you're going to be afraid when it's 3rd and long because you're afraid to throw. And so you throw a quick out because you're afraid of the blitz. Now, I give the Browns credit for one thing. They have, boned up on their offensive line. They've gotten stronger. So the offensive line is better this year than it was last year. But it doesn't matter how good they are. They can't block 7 men. They're not that good. And they're not gelled yet. All right. Think of it like a souffle, folks, and we'll go, Julia Child, and we can talk about souffles. Now, the souffle, if you pull it out of the oven too soon, the thing will just collapse, right? It's got a set. It's like good bread. You make good bread, and it's got a proof, An offensive line is the same way. It may have individual good talents, but until they're working side by side at game speed, they're not going to know the guy beside them particularly well. They're not going to know his tendencies of, when to switch off, when to, it's a gelling thing. It's going to take 8 weeks for that offensive line to even start to gel. And the first 8 weeks are going to be fucking dangerous for whomever plays quarterback. Now, once again, we'll go back to Cody Kessler. If the only way to beat 7 men in the box is throwing deep and you have a weak arm and can't throw deep, you're not going to play. So why are we wasting time even talking about Cody Kessler? There's only 2 guys with big league arms on the Browns roster. One of them is Osweiler and one of them's Kaiser. Colonel Hogan, I don't give a shit if you can run away from trouble. You can't run away from that much trouble, 7 men in the box. So 2 quarterbacks. They're both capable of throwing the long ball, assuming that there's somebody who could run underneath the long ball. So those are the only two quarterbacks really in competition for the job. And everybody wants Kaiser because they know that Osweiler is not consistent and he throws so many interceptions. And that once that shit starts, it never stops. You never see a quarterback throw as many interceptions as touchdowns and suddenly become efficient. It doesn't work that way. I'm looking at the Dolphins picking up Jay Cutler and I'm laughing my ass off. You know, it's like, yeah, he's going to turn over a new leaf now that he's, wrong. Here's a copy of our home game. We'll see you later. So what you have is a situation where the Browns will keep handing the ball off and getting tackled in the backfield because there are 7 men in the box. It'll get to situations where they're predictable, running the ball on 1st and 2nd down, 3rd and long, throw 3 yards, get tackled, come out and punt. And this is all what we've seen the last many, many years. Our future will not be changed until we can make defenses pay for 7 men in the box. And no, little Duke Johnson, yeah, they're going to line him up wide. Do you think that he's going to be able to fight through cornerbacks at his size? The whole idea is a guy like Duke Johnson, he can beat linebackers. That's why he comes out of the backfield effectively to catch passes. To line him up wide? No. He's not big enough. He's not tall enough. I'm tired of the Smurfy shit this team. Every time we have a good big wide receiver, it makes a difference. We have the drug-addled Josh Gordon and the I want to get out of Cleveland at all costs Terrell Pryor. And when we have guys who have size, it's like, whoa, what a difference it makes. And then we go back to Smurfs again, and it's like, all right. So, what do you do if you're the Browns? You throw short passes, you try not to make mistakes, and you punt. That's what happens. And you can't control the amount of time you have in time of possession. You get tired on defense. You give up points. Here's another thing. Yes, we've beefed up our defensive line, and kudos to the Cleveland Browns. And I've already told everybody in the past, you couldn't fill all the holes that the Browns had in one draft. We're a 1-15 team, and you're a 3-13 team this year, in my estimation. You're no better than that. You're not going to be better, and you're not going to be better until you start putting pieces together. Like, everyone talks about, well, Troy Aikman went 1-15, but Troy Aikman the very next year ended up with Michael Irvin. It's like, fuck you. They got wide receivers. They helped him. Nobody is helping Brock Osweiler or Deshaun Kaiser. They're not helping these guys. There's nobody out on that field, wide receiver-wise, who's going to help those quarterbacks out. Now, the offensive line, they can block their man, but they can't block their man +2. It doesn't work that way. So I'm just telling you what to expect. The Browns have no secondary. Look at the depth chart. Kindred, I call him Kindred Spirit because he has no body on the field. and then you have Ibrahim, who sounds like he should be in the Old fucking Testament. I mean, that guy sucks. Now, we're talking about people who played at Northwestern. It's like, please. Yes, he could be a journalism major, but no, he's not a football player. We have no secondary. Our safeties blow. And you know that Hayden will be hurt, ripping his groin again for the umpteenth time, just as sure as Josh Tomlin goes on to the DL every single season. And if you give up big plays down the field, it doesn't matter how much your defensive line is improved. You got to get to the quarterback. You have one guy and a rookie who everyone says can rush the quarterback, and Garrett Miles Garrett. Or you can have Agba, who nobody really knows for sure, except that we insisted on playing him at the wrong position last year. Nice to know that Cam Irving still can't beat anybody out on the right side of the offensive line and is way down in the depth chart on the offensive line. On the defensive line, you're hoping that Desmond Bryant can come back, but he's injured every single year as well. And then look at your linebacker, man. I mean, Joe Scobert, they're talking about number 1 on the depth chart is Tank fucking Carter. The guy is a special teams player. In fact, he was probably our best special teams player last year on a 1-15 team. He's not a starting linebacker. None of them are. They're terrible. Now, Collins, yeah, but I'm saying that last position, Tank Carter or Joe Scobert. I mean, do you realize how bad Scobert has to be if he can't beat out Tank Carter? Another wasted draft pick. You know, you get tired of it after a while. 2-14, 3-13. You know, if the gods smile on us and we kick a last-second 52-yard field goal, if Zane Gonzalez makes the team, then we could go 4-12. That's what we have to look forward to. Now, what happens after the offensive line gels? It still isn't going to stop 7 men in the box, okay? But it will make life safer for the quarterbacks. And that's the reason why I say don't even consider putting Deshaun Kaiser on the field until week 8, week 9, second half of the season. Don't even waste your time until that offensive line has gelled. Look at Ben Roethlisberger. He came from Miami of Ohio to an already gelled offensive line. People forget that, you know? Then look at Steve Young, who was running for his life in Tampa Bay. You just don't want to put a young quarterback behind a porous sieve of an offensive line. Let them gel. They're good players this year, but they need to work together. That's why Kessler should be second string and Kaiser should be third string. Not based on talent, but if Osweiler goes down, then kind of like the rag you want to use to clean up where your dog pisses on the floor, that's Cody Kessler. You know, he's expendable. What can I tell you? He'll go back, hold on to the ball too long and get killed like he did last year. But he's expendable. If you don't think that, you know, if you believe that Brock Osweiler is somebody you want to hold on to, then start Cody Kessler during the season and let him get killed. You know, he's the expendable one. We can't afford to lose the 2 quarterbacks who actually have arms, and we can't afford to lose the rookie early, and we can't afford to play the rookie early when the offensive line is not gelled. Simple enough. That's my take on the Cleveland Browns. And the preseason begins. And I don't care, Greg Williams, how much the bounty is. I don't care. You know, you got no defensive secondary. Now, real quick, Cleveland Indians. And I'll leave you with a quick thought about the Cleveland Indians. When a guy comes out like Severino, what an arm that guy has for the Yankees, really a fine young pitcher. Guy blows 97 miles an hour average, which means he was, you know, topping out at 99, 100 miles an hour. And you know that he is just going to throw the ball by you. When he comes out throwing a mixture of 60-40 fastballs and breaking balls, you know that the Indians are scouted and the Indians can't hit the off-speed pitch. And look, I've been calling for Tyvon Berkeley's head for how many fucking years? But it's so obvious that the strategy is to get ahead of the Indians hitters, and once they get 2 strikes on them, throw the split-fingered pitch, if you have it, or the off-speed pitch down and away, down in the dirt. They'll swing and miss trying to pull it, they strike out. You look at the games that the Indians have won, how many times they walk versus when they lose, how many times they walk, how many times they strike out when they lose. It is unbelievable. From a statistical perspective, everything agrees with the fact that when they're striking out a lot and they're not walking, they're not winning. Just like when they score first, they're winning. But they don't score because they get overly excited and pitchers start throwing off-speed pitches. I knew that Severino had our number the second he was throwing the off-speed pitch for strikes, because the only hope you have against a guy throwing 99 is that maybe the young pitcher hasn't perfected his off-speed pitch like Danny Salazar. But no, he's had 4 losses this year, so there are teams that hit him. But boy, he was on. But it isn't just him. It's guys like Montgomery, the guy who faced both of them before, the left-handed rookie who sucks. He fucking blows. He was throwing nothing but curveballs, nothing but off-speed pitches in the dirt, and the Indians were swinging and missing. So Ty Van Berkeley has to go. And I'll say this 150 times until they fire his ass. And that's the problem with the Cleveland Indians and why the Cleveland Indians are not going to go anywhere. Tito Francona would rather keep his guys, these old fuckers, these guys who are no good, who are old, ancient, rather than bring up young guys. He wants to wait until September to bring up the young guys. That's fine. But you know something? Kipnis should be traded. He should be gone. Ramirez should be playing second base. I don't even have a problem. Play Urshela at third until you want to bring Andy Diaz up. Whatever. We need people who can get their bat on the ball and hit line drives. And I'll say this for Urshela. He's got no power, but at least he's hitting he's making contact at the plate. He's not striking out every goddamn time. I don't know. Kipnis is going to get hurt one last and final time, and we're going to get no value for him, and we need to get value for him. As far as our bullpen, that's the thing that really aggravates me about Francona, about the way he utilizes the bullpen. He overutilizes a guy like Andrew Miller, who's now hurt, and now it's let's leave the starting pitching in for too fucking long because we have no confidence in our bullpen. He has no confidence in Dan Otero, and why would you have confidence for Brian Shaw? Because he looks like his arm's used up. He's got no confidence in Zach McAllister, all one-pitch Zach. So he's trying to go directly into the eighth inning, all right? I don't get it. If that's all the more confidence you had in your bullpen, why didn't you be more proactive in getting more than Joe Smith? Why didn't you get more help in the bullpen for the middle innings? Because let's be honest, Bauer and Salazar aren't going to give you more than 5-6 innings because they throw 100 pitches in that amount of time. It all makes too much goddamn sense to me. But instead, we have to sit there and starting pitching ends up way, way, way too deep in a game. I don't mean like Kluber, who's efficient. I mean guys who are now up to throwing 110, 112, 114 pitches. What's that all about? You're going to blow out Carrasco's arm before the end of the season, and there's no confidence in the bullpen. So all I can tell you is this. When all is said and done, the Cleveland Indians are not going to go anywhere until they become more selective at the plate. Don't believe me? They should have easily, if not swept the New York Yankees, taken 3 of 4. But the Yankees at least had discipline. Did you notice that they're willing to take the walk and not swing at the pitch out of the strike zone? Even their younger players had more discipline than our veterans. It's a problem for the Indians. They don't score, and when they don't score, they press. And when they press, they swing at bad pitches. They strike out multiple double-digit times in a game. It's lousy, and something needs to be done about it. And I'm tired of talking about it. Thanks for tuning in to this podcast. We'll see what happens to the Browns on Thursday and the fanboys' new god, Brock Osweiler. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.